And when your player gets tired, I get it. I probably wouldn't have used the term low management. I would have said I just gave him a rest for a little while till he got back to his breath and felt good. Because there's no way I was gonna not have him on the field, even if just him on the field is a threat that is gonna take away two defenders to guard him. So especially when they got in the red zone area, that's probably when I really noticed it because they were really running the ball.
Right.
But hey, he has a good feel. We don't know. Julio during the week could have on one of those vest things that tracks their hydration and everything else, and said, "Hey, he's getting close to that line. We need to, slow him back a little bit. Maybe that's why he was limited on a day or something." And then he's looking at the game and seeing what's going on, and hey, maybe he's feeling a little tight and says, "Hey, I got to pull him back a little bit." Now, I'm all in. I don't think the Indianapolis Colts, and this shows you what the NFL thinks. Carson Wentz couldn't move anywhere. They wasn't load managing nothing about neither one of them ankles in a real NFL game. So, that was kind of weird. This is, divisional AFC South type game. Man, all bets are off. Nobody really cares about, load management. And that's why I say maybe something during the week with signs and signals to them that they were going to have to do something like that. Because without A.J. Brown, to me, I'm thinking now, you got to give us more. You may not come out at all. It is what it is. But you win, and Vrabel knows that they didn't play very well in different components of the game at times. So, and they still won. So that's really the refreshing part of all of this as a player, when you know that we didn't play well as a team and not complimentary football, and we still won. So as long as you keep stacking up those wins and continue to gradually get better, all's good. But you got to know you can't keep playing like that, because eventually it's going to haunt you and it's going to cost you a game.
You said this against Seattle. You said the same thing yesterday. These make for interesting film sessions because you got the win, which is the most important thing. But you can really coach some guys up after the mistakes that were made.
Sometimes, I'm not going to say all the time, but sometimes we'd win. I would walk out of a meeting feeling like we lost. They would hammer you over the head on a win because they want you to stay on top of your game and really focused and dialed in. On the losses, it seemed like they weren't as tough. When I say tough, I meant like, the intensity of the conversations that has been said by the coaches. Because it was maybe like everybody's taking their turn. Where sometimes when you win, it was just drastic bad plays. I mean, so yeah, that happens, but it's not all hunky dory just because you won. It is not that way. Yeah, I'd come home and sometimes I walk out of there with like I'm so mad I want to go on the field right now. I want to go on the field right this Monday. I still got Tuesday off and then Wednesday to practice. Oh man, so it's always kind of interesting to give you the backstory of what really goes on, and I think people have a misperception of like you win, everything's great. So it's not like that. That's kind of like college. Mm-hmm. College is not the problem. Then the media always asking if he's trying to send out a message. They got to stop that. This is not college. They never do that in the pros. They tell guys straight in their face in the meeting room when they have individual meetings, when they have team meetings, exactly what's going on. You definitely know where you stand. Now, they can lie to you, in your face. Oh, you're doing a great job, and then you get cut. That don't mean you weren't doing a good job. You just was the last guy on the totem pole.
Right.
So, yeah, the NFL it's a different animal. And that's why I think this was just kind of weird to me, because all bets are off. We're not worried about next week. We're worried about this week to win that game.
Right.
So, hey, rest up and, tightness got to get loose real quick. So I don't know if that was the real reason. I have no idea.
Maybe Derrick Henry is just being Derrick Henry, and we keep
are they resting him? He got 30.
No, he didn't seem to be. No, he got a couple third downs where he got to take a quick.
They rest him during the week though. He does not do anything till like Thursdays as far as practice, right?
I would tell him, hey, King, whatever works for you, man.
Oh, I wouldn't have him practice on Friday when we just doing red zone.
Right.
Yeah, make sure he knows. It's not hard to say we're gonna run behind Safoda and Lawan. We're gonna run left, man. Make sure you get that left leg strong, put it in the ground and go vertical. No, I'm just kidding. But so, I know it's a different animal. He's the running back, he's taking hits. But that's what my whole point is. they still weren't resting him throughout that game.
No. We talked a lot about how well Ryan Tannehill played last week. He didn't have a touchdown in the game or an interception, but he kept things moving. He did such a fantastic job yesterday, and it didn't matter who was playing receiver. I know he'd like to have the one pass back, the pick where, he threw it to Darius Leonard, but he ran the ball. He was real decisive when he ran. He got extra yardage even beyond what would have been expected on any of those runs. And Blaine, so those guys aren't in. All right, I'll throw to Jeremy McNichols for a touchdown. Okay, I'll throw to Nick Westbrook. I mean, it doesn't matter who's out there. He's finding the open guy, and he's throwing to the opening guy.
One more thing before I go into that. I know everybody's the fans are talking about we paid our money, and you do, to go to the game. But you got to think that Vrabel is not trying not to win the game and taking Julio out for some unknown reason. Right. You got to believe that. Even if you don't know anything about anything, which I don't, you got to believe he's trying to win games. That's what he's paid to do. So he's, in his mind, he's thinking, I'm doing the best for my team to win.
Right.
And so, I think we just got to get up and stick. The object is not to see star players. The object is out to win, ultimately. Hopefully you'll get both. But if Julio Jones only catches 4 balls and have 5 targets, I'm not going to be mad. I mean, we won as a fan. Would I like to see more? When we start bringing the conversation in about fantasy and all that, then that's not a conversation.
Right.
That has nothing to do with coaches trying to win football games. Yeah. So, now on to the Tannehill. I think Tannehill is the linchpin because I think everybody is getting prepared, even though he did well. It took a lot of carries to get to that today for him, the king. I think Tannehill is the linchpin. He proved that last game, at least so far in the regular season, these first 3 games, well, really 2, that they won, that he can throw the ball around and win games as well as use his feet. He's exactly what I would model my quarterback. I know they're talking about sliding. Well, guess what? The time that he looked like he wanted to slide, he didn't. He messed up the safety. The safety missed him because he thought he was going to slide. Yeah. The Blackman kid, I think his last name. Yeah, so he kept getting the extra 10 yards. Do you want him when he's in the muck of everything to get down? But when you're out there with some DBs, not unless you got one of those headhunters out there, I think you could take some risk at times. I thought he did a fabulous job being clutch, pinpoint, accurate, throw the deep ball well. Hey, man, there's not a lot. I know. Only thing I hate that he threw the 1 interception in the traffic. It was like 3 receivers kind of within 5 yards. Yeah. And then he was going the opposite direction. The guy just moved slightly, and then the guy threw it right in the breadbasket of Leonard. I mean, he was in front of him initially. So, that one. The other one, to me, Chester Rogers tried to catch it with his body instead of just use his hands. Right. I don't know if he threw a hot potato, how fast it was. But that wasn't on him. He still got to catch that ball. Hey, that's be the break. Westbrook Akina stepped up, but, nobody be talking about that if that fumble would have cost us a game because that was in a red zone. Yeah. And he did a good job. I mean, actually, he showed that we can have a rotation, Julio. He said we need to be rotating how much you get paid and how much I get paid. Nah, just kidding, man.
Well, I know people get caught up in guys in the preseason, and this guy's playing so well, and that guy. And one of the arguments for Nick Westbrook-Akina was he was on the team last year. He's a good special teamer. He caught a couple of balls. I mean,
last year, yeah, he did.
He actually understands where he's supposed to be and when he's supposed to be there. Well, look, then he makes the team. And then now they're using him.
Right. Well, I thought all the role players did a fantabulous job yesterday. And because it takes all, 53 guys or how many ever is dressing, 46 or whatever the number is once it starts. But I thought they did a great job. There's a reason why they're backups, and they can show you flashes, but they can't continue to do that game in and game out. You're going to need your role players, and this was one of them. I was excited for, Long. Crookshank played well. Yeah. The list, there was a nice little list there of guys. Oladaney. I mean, we can go on and on who played a significant role, and we're not used to them in that role. And they did a good job. They're trying to showcase that they can play this league, whether you're with the Titans next year, because most of those guys are on 1 year or 1 year left on their deal, or you're with someone else. So they're super motivated. This is what makes the guys that are the superstars that are already making the money, they stay motivated as though they're going for the money. So that's why it's interesting. You don't want the guy who's only playing a 1 year to get the money.
Right.
Though, if he's been with you for 4 years and he's capitalizing on his opportunity and he's staying healthy, Crookshank looked like a starter. I mean, he looked, and I told you, he has all the skill sets: length, speed, agility, athleticism, smart. If he stays healthy, somebody's gonna roll today. Say, hey man, we can get him on, minimum, 3 or 4 year deal.
He played every defensive snap yesterday.
Yeah.
He's never done anything like that.
Yeah.
Remember, his high was 35 last week. He played 25 was his high before that.
Because he got in for McDonald, yeah.
Yeah.
Or McDougal, or whatever.
That dude played 61 snaps on defense, which is about double what he'd ever played.
He brought the heat on that one blitz.
He did.
That looked, boy, I don't know if I brought it like that. I was like, whoa, and he made the quarterback had to slide to the left, and then they got a sack.
Yep.
He didn't get the sack, but I would sure say that's a call sack.
Yep.
He ran right through Taylor. He gave it to him. He gave him the business. That was an aggressive, physical blitz. That was on par. So, yeah, it's a lot. I mean, and the receivers all did well. I mean, so, hey, man, you got to be happy, Titans fans, that you won the game. Ultimately, that's the goal, not how much Henry, Tannehill, or Westbrook, Akina played, and Julio didn't. At the end, it just became noticeable, like, oh, where's who? I really didn't notice till they started got like to the 15. I was like, dang. I saw McMath. That's what
When
made
I
me
saw
really.
McMath jog out there, I
That's why I
thought
was like,
something's wrong.
whoa.
Although he played 17 plays on offense yesterday, which is just unbelievable. McMath, dude's out there just doing his thing.
Yeah. So, hey, you win some, you lose some. But I wouldn't get my tail all in the wits about Julio not out there in the red zone and we win. So yeah. You can't win them all, Coach Vrabel. I mean, it's almost like you can't do anything right. I'm sure he was trying to win the game. Just believe that. If you don't believe anything he says because you're not sure, you're not behind the scenes, just believe he's doing everything his job depends on it to win the game.
Right. And he's got to answer to everybody in the building on what he did or didn't do to win the game. Every one of those assistant coaches, every player who's looking him in the eye to be the leader, he's got to look those guys in the eye and know that he did everything he could to win.
Well, yeah, the leaders, but I don't think the coaches are doing that. No, you don't question your coach or his decision, or you would question yourself where you got a job.
Yeah, you'd be questioning, where am I going to be next?
Not unless y'all are really good friends and you behind the scenes, one-on-one. Hey, do you think we should have went for it on fourth down? Just imagine if you didn't get it. What'd you say? Oh, okay. Yeah, your pink slip is right there.
They did though. He was aggressive yesterday, going for it on fourth down, going for two. We'll keep talking about this game. Look, phone lines are open. Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. You want to jump in, talk about what you saw, what you didn't see, who you saw, who you didn't see. We'd love to hear from you. 615-737-1045. It's also time for our Ding Dong of the Week. Oh, my goodness. I got a humdinger of a ding-dong that involves Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it's all coming up next. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
Ryan Tannehill, Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry. They live here. I mean, not really here in the building, but you know what we mean. On the Titan Station.
104.5 The Zone.
So
did A.J. Brown want to stay out of the game, or was that like a strength and conditioning coach call? Just want to get your guys' take on that, and I figured Blaine would hit on this. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, Blaine, Ryan asking about A.J. Brown, saying essentially, was this like a strength and conditioning? Was someone on the coaching staff taking him out, or did he take himself out based on what was going on with him?
Well, that's an interesting question because I don't ever recall a player like taking themselves out. Like you take yourself out and then you have them say, hey, something's wrong with me. You look at it, give them assessment, and they then tell you you're down. So maybe initially he did take himself out, but they had to, assess the injury and then tell him he's out. He can't just like, hey man, my calf is tight. I'm out, man. No, that's not how it works, man. they do this for a living now. They know they have to be out there. So probably some. I didn't see when it happened. I know he ran when they do that little speed sweep or however you want to call it with the toss. He ran, and you couldn't really. If I was looking for something, I could see it. But if I didn't know that he went out for a hamstring, I wouldn't have known anything. So, no, I think it was legit. Now, it was smart on their part because, hopefully he'll be able to play this week. Because if he would have pressed himself and pushed himself out there, it could have, pulled. It's just funny, man, how they stand on the sideline. They act so casual, and it makes you think that they can go back out there.
Right.
Where in my era, I'd be sitting there, so I'll be in tears that I'm not out there helping my team because I strained a muscle. So it's just a different era of player. So, no, nobody's taking themselves out. They get an assessment, and then the trainer tells them whether they're up or not. And then he relays the message to the head coach.
And they have teams pay a lot of money for medical and trainers and, and strength coaches and all those people to tell them, hey, man, this dude can't go. Or like, oh, yeah, he can go.
Now that's a good question, though.
Yes, it is. That's a real good question.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes a trainer, somebody involved might say, he's okay. He can't hurt it any worse. It's a question of pain management.
Right.
Literally. Sometimes it's like,
it's
hey, man,
up to him.
It's up to you.
Because this is he can fight through it. But, they never said that to me because they knew I was going to play.
Right.
but,
you would manage the pain.
It was maybe with a hamstring because I could have cost our team. But anything else that was just kind of like a broken arm or something, I can go. Yeah. Tape it up.
Right. Well, the story Blaine tells about standing next to Burton Elrod, the team physician, going, hey, why is this knot on my arm? And him going, because your arm is broken. You're like, no, it's okay. It's just I have a big knot. He's like,
no, he saw it first.
Oh, he said, Blaine, what's the knot on your arm?
I was like, all right. So I said, I didn't even know it was there.
So he literally, the knot was so big, he's like, hey, man, you got a big knot on your arm.
And he knew instantly what it was, too. He knew that it was something was
NFL
broke.
team physician.
Yeah, he knew it was broke. He said, give me your hand. I said, why would I touch your hand? He was like, no, I want you to like shake my hand and then twist your wrist. That's what he said.
Okay.
And he said, you don't feel nothing? I said, nope. He said, well, that's abnormal. You should be feeling something like, because I think it's broke. Your form is broke. What? What the hell? I thought he was crazy. I walked away. He followed me. Like, no, I'm serious. I'm serious. I said, hey, man, we about to go in overtime against the Raiders. It was in Memphis.
Well, that Memphis year. Chuck in Clarksville up next. What's going on, Chuck? Thank you for calling Blaine and Mickey. We appreciate it.
Hey, guys. I just want to talk about Tannehill's interceptions yesterday. I think you're spot on. I mean, it looked to me like Hudson was standing right in front of Leonard, and all of a sudden he thought he'd move a couple of yards to the right and get more open, and Tannehill had already committed the throw. So I don't put that one on Tannehill. And then, of course, Chester Rogers tried to catch the ball in his body, and that popped up in the air. It was an interception. So, but it just seems like, the only thing I got to knock on the Titans, because I love them to death, and I'm all with Brable. If he wants to sit, I don't give a bleep who's playing as long as we win. But, the guys are just going to have better ball management, because it's going to present a problem. We keep turning the ball over and they're not getting turnovers.
Yeah, I agreed. And that's something Mike Vrabel was very adamant about yesterday. Like, hey, man, we can't give it away and then not take any back. You never win those games. We won today. We were lucky. I'm paraphrasing, but
that's what I was talking about in pregame. Yep. We were talking about turnover margin. They were -3 going into that game, so they're still in the negative.
They've taken one away and given away 7 in 3 games. That's a problem. And they're still 2-1.
2-1, right?
Yeah.
And so Vrabel will never say this, but he's up now, jumping up and down right now, doing jumping jacks and smiling the whole time because he lives by those numbers as well as complimentary football. And they're not really complimenting each other with getting takeaways based off of the teams they played. So, yeah, and you're still winning games. He knows that's a good sign, but he knows you can't continue it. That's why he's perturbed to stack up some wins, especially against some really good teams. So you may be able to get away from, against this Colts in a 50% wins or whatever he was, 70%, and maybe the Jets or Jaguars. But after that, no, you will not win those games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, again, we're going to talk about this game the rest of today. We're going to talk about it the rest of this week. Then we'll turn our attention to the New York Jets, who have struggled out of the gate. We'll certainly talk about them. But ultimately, it didn't matter who was on the field at the end of the game and who was injured and who wasn't, whose load got managed and everything else. Ryan Tannehill threw to the guys who were out there. The defense only allowed those rascals 265 total yards. They had 10 points off of turnovers. They got directly off of turnovers. And anybody involved with the football team, Blaine, would say, well, it's still our job on defense to stop them. It doesn't matter if they get the ball on the 1 yard line, the 6 or the 40 or whatever it is. Still our job to stop them. The turnovers have led to some points the last 3 weeks. Just clearing that up. Mm-hmm. And this team, well, again, they'd probably still be 2-1 because nothing was going to help them against the Cardinals. They just flew in and beat the tar out of them. But if they can clean up these turnovers, just like the caller said, they're just not forcing any. They have the one Byard interception. That's it. Yeah. And they're around the quarterback. They're
making
the
some
ball.
noise now. The defense looks much improved.
Yep, it does.
I think they're ranked 11th in third down. So that's pretty significant for them. Yeah. They look 32nd. Different. They look different, though. The defense, they look like they're in unison and everything else. They're raising havoc, some big hits and tackles and PBUs, pressuring the quarterback, getting hits. I think Landry has the most pressures in the league or somewhere. He's at the top. I'm all big on, he's getting pressure, but at some point that's going to turn into sacks for him. He's already got some, I think, a sack and a half or so. Oluwadale played well. I think Autry and those guys were making noise as well as Simmons. They look different out there. Yeah, they look different compared to last season.
Are you a little nervous about Fulton ankle getting banged up a little bit late? Because that's when Breon Borders came out. Borders only played like 3 snaps on defense. I think made 2 plays in his 3 snaps.
But Fulton came back in the game, correct?
Yeah.
Right, so I'm not worried.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't be sore this week and may be limited.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's the kind of what, with hammies a little different when it's soft tissue. You go back out there, and next thing you know, now you're way worse. Well, the ankle is going to be sore, but if he gets back to swelling down by the end of the week, I think he'll be fine as long as he stays in tune. But I think as a coach, you feel comfortable with Borders. I mean, as a backup, and he can fill in. He's done it before for a game or two, so you're not like out of wits a little bit. You're just like, ugh, maybe we should have just kept him out and he went back in. But hey, Fulton's tough, and he got back out there. So I would assume he's young too. So you would think his recovery time is a lot faster. When you start getting to 30, then, your recovery time as far as, an injury sometimes is not as fast as when you were 22, 23, 24. I would feel comfortable. I thought Borders did a good job. 2 PBUs. Got really lucky. I was really disturbed. I'm going to ask John Glennon about this later on when we have him on at 2:20, right? Mm-hmm. Is it about the pass interference or I don't know what they call holding, or they're doing it all over the place, not just in our game, the Titans game, but that's hard to do, man. I'm going to tell you this. I would have a whole bunch of penalties would have cost us if they were going to call some of those calls they call in this last game versus the Titans. And as well as against the Colts.
And these weren't necessarily –
Xavier Rhodes went against the Colts. I thought were like, huh?
Yeah. And these aren't even necessarily egregious. They're not much further, if even more than 5 yards down the field. It's just like just a quick lockup and then let him go, or one hand on the guy. And
well, I had a great trick because, I was fast, but I wasn't fast on the level of these 4-3 guys. So one of my tricks was I would always, when they're running in motion, just imagine if you're running, and I would hit their arm to mess up their stride frequency. Mm-hmm. See, you hit the arm, it messes up the stride frequency. Mm-hmm. See, that's how in depth I thought about how I could slow them down. Now you're at my speed. Now our frequency is the same, right? they would call that pass interference. And I don't care if I'm looking at the ball or not. I think they would call that. And I would hit that arm and hit that arm and hit that arm. It would never get all the way up. It would get past his thigh. That's it.
You hitting it with a club when you had your club?
Oh, no, it didn't matter if it was the club or not. I was hitting it. Yeah, I was like, hey, man, I'm in a – because there's a saying, you know, with receivers, if they're even, they're leaving. Because they have another gear and track the ball, and that's why you always see all of a sudden you're like, dang, what did the dude do? Did he slow down? No, they got another gear to go get it, you know? So, yeah, that's what happens, let alone jump up and get it and all these acrobatic things that they do. So, yeah, I think that cheat mechanism that I use, I don't think they could get away with it. Maybe one time, but definitely not all the time.
It's time to do this. We do our ding dong of the week usually in the first hour of the Monday show. You can share your ding dong of the week. It could be sports related, it could be otherwise related. Sometimes maybe you've got 2 ding dongs or more than that. However many ding dongs you have, you can always share them with us. We eagerly anticipate your ding dong each week. Lucas is Lucas has his ding dong ready.
Are you to go? You ready to go?
Yeah, it's a single ding dong this week.
You got a single
no double ding dong. My ding dong of the week is Cliff Kingsbury.
What did he do?
This man, I know the Cardinals are a good football team, and they are 3-0. Cliff Kingsbury attempting a 68-yard field goal before halftime that results in a kick 6 for the Jaguars to take the lead. Nobody could even come close to Jamal Agnew on that return. A 109-yard return on a 68-yard field goal attempt.
That's how that went down.
Cardinals should have blown out the Jaguars on Sunday. They're 3-0.
Agnew, man, that made a lot of highlights. That made his day. That was a 109-yard kickoff return.
Kick 6,
return, yeah.
But to attempt a field goal from 68 yards, come on, man.
Right before the half, like it wasn't like a game winner, like he had to.
Okay, I've added a third ding dong.
That wasn't even that wasn't even in the dome. That was outside.
Throw it up. You got Kyler Murray and I think DeAndre Hopkins was active.
Yeah, he was
on
out
Sunday.
there. I saw him.
Throw it up.
Yeah.
Well, I have a ding dong and a long field goal related ding dong myself. The Lions have played their butts off. They've played hard.
Oh, then you don't take my ding dong.
Is this your okay? Share your ding dong, then we'll see.
They should have got a delay of game
2
before
seconds.
They got an opportunity to kick the field goal. And that would have put him out of field goal. He wouldn't have made it.
It was really bad.
That they screwed him. I mean, it was like 2 or 3 seconds.
It was like 2008 playoffs here against the Ravens.
And then they snapped the ball
egregious.
afterwards.
Yes.
And they were at home. So it was.
Well, and like 2 years from now, nobody's going to think about that because it was an NFL record. 66-yard field goal, hit the crossbar and went in. Shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, attempted, because I think they would have probably did a Hail Mary then. I mean, I know it was the last play, but they would have had a better shot to make it it would have been add 5 more yards, a 70-some yard. He wouldn't attempt it. He wouldn't even attempt it. It was a 71-yard field goal.
Well, I mean, everybody, like you said, everybody's celebrating this guy hit. If you're the Lions, you just think we just got bamboozled out of a loss because these knuckleheads can't look at a clock. It reminded me again of the playoff loss against the Ravens in 2008, where the play clock went down and everybody's like 1, 2. It was over 2 seconds that the play clock, and then the Ravens run a play. So I'm still PO'd about that. Here's my non-football related ding dong. I found this last week. I've been holding on to my ding dong.
Oh, you've been holding on your ding dong
for a while now.
You got to go to the bathroom?
So no, this happened in New Zealand.
Oh my!
A trunk full of Kentucky Fried Chicken smuggled into a city in Auckland, New Zealand, where restaurants are now closed because of COVID-19. So police see this car. They did a U-turn. They sped off trying to get away from the police. So the authorities chase the car. They search, and they find a trunk load of Kentucky Fried Chicken. The guys had driven 75 miles from Hamilton to Auckland, New Zealand. They were arrested when police noticed a suspicious vehicle on the outskirts of town. They had, per police search, they had at least 3 buckets of chicken, 10 cups of coleslaw, fries, and 4 other bags of KFC items, according to local police.
So silly,
it says it remains unknown if the pair intended to sell the items or were just really hungry.
There's an entire South Park episode about this. Literally a whole episode of South Park with this plot.
There exists one, or you're saying there will be?
No, there one that exists. Like, it is a Scarface type episode because Cartman is like selling KFC and gravy because it's illegal.
And here's Under New Zealand's anti
Look, you can't even get it out.
under, under New Zealand's anti-COVID-19 laws, the pair's trip to KFC could cost them the equivalent of $3,000 and possibly 6 months in prison.
Oh, my God. What are you in for? Chicken.
Extra crispy. Those dudes, they had a trunk load. Here's my only question. Look, I get it. People like the coleslaw at KFC. I like it too. But I mean, I'm ducking a couple of the tubs of slaw, and I'm throwing in a couple more buckets of chicken, especially if I'm going to try to sell it, because that's a big ticket item. Wouldn't you rather have a couple of chicken pieces than slaw? It just seems like their priorities are all messed up. And I'm sorry, because I know there's COVID. It's a serious thing. But these two rascals smuggled chicken across the border. They drove 75 miles to get it. I mean, I know we're all dealing with it, how we're dealing with it. But those dudes, they hatched this plan. They may have been under the influence of something. And they're like, hey, man, I know where there's a KFC open. It's 75 miles away, but we're going to go over there. And we're going to get it, and we're going to bring it back. Oh, my gosh. Well, anyway, these two dudes, I don't know. Maybe they'll have some mercy on them. Maybe they'll let them at least eat the chicken. Hopefully they don't have to, pour it all out on the side of the road.
No. That was your only ding-dong?
No, I got another one. We were talking about Vince Young a little bit last week, and there was an Ohio State player, Kayvon Pope,
yes,
who got mad on the sidelines. He started trying to take his uniform off.
No, he got mad because he wasn't playing.
Because he tried to go in and they waved him back out.
Yeah.
And he got mad. So he had to be escorted to the locker room. He tried to enter the field to play. He was waved back by a teammate. He was visibly upset on the sideline. Coaches and teammates attempted to calm him down. Eventually, he went back to the locker room after throwing his gloves into the stands and attempting to take off his uniform. He is no longer on the team. When he got to the locker room, he tweeted, F Ohio State. Only he didn't just say F.
And then they said F you.
They said so long. He gets to finish the semester, though. So he's a senior. He gets to finish the semester. He will be afforded all rights and privileges of a football player at Ohio State. He just will not play football there any longer. Heck, maybe he can get in the transfer portal and catch, 6 games somewhere else at this point. All right, we got to go. We'll come back. Ding Dong of the Week. You want to share one, jump on in and do it. 615-737-1045.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
Coming up tomorrow morning.
We go from Victory Monday to Tennessee Tuesday as we take a look at the Vols with Josh Ward of the Sports Animal in Knoxville.
And if you missed our interview with Titans linebacker Ola Denny, you have another chance to catch it.
You can listen to any part of the show by downloading the podcast.
Jay, you going to snipe more people tomorrow?
Moan, the question is, why wouldn't I snipe more people?
J. Mart and Ramon. Tomorrow morning from 6 to 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
now and the leaders of the AFC South. People looked at the Colts as your main competition. And, Blaine, I don't care what it looks like or who's got an ankle problem, whatever. If you make them 0-3, you did a heck of a thing on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. This is an exciting time. So that's why it's, I guess, for some fans, just wasn't good enough. But, hey, they made a great decision in starting Carson Wentz. They thought that was their best option. And I really think that helped out the pass rushing because he was a sitting duck pretty much all day. He was throwing the ball in the ground and at people's ankles. Yeah, he wanted no part. He shouldn't have been out there, maybe in the backup role. But that's how important it was to the Colts to win this game.
Yep.
They had to play their best. Even your best, at 75% is better than the backup. See?
And I know everybody wonders about their backup.
They wasn't load managing him.
They were not.
They weren't trying to protect him at all.
They said, hey, man, manage your load of yourself out right there on 2 bad feet and play this whole game. Everybody wonders what they got with the backup quarterback. If you wonder what the Colts think about their backup quarterbacks, don't wonder because they don't like either one of them. Man. They played Carson Wentz on feet that didn't work yesterday.
Because they had bruised ankles. So they didn't work correctly.
And by the end, that poor guy, there was one play where they just crushed the cylinder again, and he just sort of threw the ball and then just kind of trickled himself out of the pocket. It hurt watching him play yesterday. It hurt watching him. That was an unbelievable effort, though. But that, if you wonder where the Colts are with their backups, they brought a guy off the practice squad, and they were like, nah, Carson, just tape him up hard, man. You're okay.
Yeah.
I wonder how he responds this week.
Yeah, because it's got to be sore.
60 minutes of running around on that.
Well, better him than me.
Yeah, absolutely. Taylor Lewan played yesterday. Mike Vrabel got asked about him today and essentially said, there were some plays that were good. There were some that I'm sure he'd like to have back. But he got into what things have been like for him over the last week or so after he was booed by Titans fans. And he brought this up in the postgame yesterday. Here's the sound from Taylor Lewan after the win yesterday.
I cruised back on the field, and our PA announcer, I think his name is Matt, just got the job. First game, right? Announces that I'm back in the game. And these fans go and start booing. Now, here's the deal. I don't know what that's all about. I'm coming back from an ACL, 10 months. It's a difficult process. And, I wasn't playing well at all. That was a really hard game to get over emotionally, mentally. The light went out. That's how it went. The lights just went out. That's a perfect metaphor for all of them. It was a really deal. You guys are not going to be able to use any of this on cable. But it was, man, I really wish I could have articulate how difficult that was. It was just hard to hear the fans after 7-8 years of as much as I've tried to do for this city. Boo! When I came back out there, that was. I started looking over at Ben, and he looked at me and smiled and shook his head, and I was like, damn, that's crazy how fast they just turned, and I'll never forget that. And it was a difficult 24 hours, a difficult 36 hours, a difficult 48 hours.
And after the Titans win.
Ding, ding. He just got my other ding dong. That's what he just got. Now, I thought he was being very honest and contrite, but guess what? The fans don't want to hear it. When you go onto the football field, it's almost like you're a robot. You got to know it. All they want is results. They don't care about you emotionally. Whatever you do outside of that, all they want you to do is go out there and play ball. And he played ball well, this last game. He was solid. So I would have said, you know what? I deserve to be booed. It was horrific, horrible coming off a knee injury, but guess what? It made me step my game up. It made me get better, made me push harder than I would have ever tested it at practice. So that's how he should have responded. So I give him a ding dong as much as he was honest. You have to, take everything with a grain of salt. And, if you mess up, you're going to get booed. And it probably because most offensive linemen aren't used to being singled out ever. So you ask for all that attention, that's what it involves, that all eyeballs are watching you, especially when you get a big contract and you have your own, little bussing with the boys.
Yeah. So,
that's what happens. So you want to be in the forefront or do you want to be in the backdrop, offensive lineman? So that, it comes with it. So you just say, hey, man, I deserve to be booed. That's what he should have said. Instead of telling us his heartfelt and feelings were heard and all that. Guess what? That was all true. Anybody being booed. We weren't. You think McNair said that when they booed him? Because they sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah. He went back there and started slinging it. The next series.
9 was about that action.
Yeah, he was all about that action, boss. Yeah, so just you should have been like, hey, that was then. This is now. Hey, I'm back to hopefully playing at the standard that I'm used to and the team and the fans are used to. But on that day, I did deserve to get booed. Embrace it. That's what your play was. It stunk. Sorry. Yeah, but I ain't asked you about your feelings, though.
Yeah.
Hey, they don't care about your feelings.
It's interesting. We were talking about this one day off the air. And at one point, if you remember, like the Titans offensive lineman never spoke. If you spoke, you'd get fined by their group. They would fine you with their own group. You would get fined by the other guys in the offensive line room if you spoke to the media.
Yeah, that was kind of a Bruce thing. He's like, hey, we about action, man. We want to have fun. We're gonna be a tight knit group, and with no individuals here because we don't work as a unit as 5. Then we're all playing poor. Yeah, that's kind of his deal.
Wasn't their thing also whatever you wore for the first game, you had to wear that for every game? Do you remember that? So if you wore short sleeves, long sleeves,
they can wear sleeves. Yeah, they try to talk about like the whole team. I was like, hey man, if it's cold out there, I'm wearing sleeves.
Well, you told me. I said, how in the world did you guys stay warm? You said we covered ourselves with Vaseline. I'd never heard of that as a warming thing, but you said, oh yeah, man, it was cold enough, Vaseline.
Yeah. Once you get to running around, but they're hitting somebody every single play, so it's it's like a cuddly bear just giving a bear hug to another bear. So, so sometimes I would go plays, a whole series without touching anybody. So I'd be like, boy, it's cold out here, man. So, yeah.
We got Mike Vrabel talking about Julio Jones. He got deep into that again. So let's get into what Mike Vrabel said today in his presser about Julio Jones. We'll do that next, and John Glennon coming up in a little over 20 minutes. It's Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
The Eagles and Cowboys go at it in an NFC East Monday Night Showdown. Tonight, starting at 7 on your home for Monday Night Football. 104.5 The Zone.
it's a pass rush this year.
It's legit.
Titans had 3 turnovers. They didn't force any. And by the end of the game, injuries had mounted for both teams. Guys like Breon Borders and Jeremy Nichols and Dane Cruikshank, who played all the defensive snaps. Those guys stepped up. A.J. Brown left with a hamstring. Julio Jones did
Westbrook Akina.
That's right. Julio Jones did not hear his name called in the fourth quarter. We will get to that in just a second. Christian Fulton was dealing with an ankle. Rashad Weaver broke his leg. But ultimately, Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry were the story. Henry hit 100 yards for the 4th straight game versus Indy. And Ryan Tannehill got it done with his arm and his legs, and it didn't matter who was out there. He threw it all around the yard like he always does. Hit touchdowns. We got to see the Billy White shoes from Westbrook Akina.
Oh, that was the highlight right there.
Which was the greatest part of the whole day for me. Through just a beautiful play call by Downing that touchdown pass to Jeremy McNichols when there was no Julio, no A.J., Racing McMath is out there. Okay, then I'll just check down to the other running back who's not Derrick Henry. How about them apples? Great play call, great execution. It doesn't matter how ugly it was. It doesn't matter. Titans got it done against a division opponent. And as you and Dyson always say, that's like 2 wins when you beat a division opponent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you did it in a fashion where you know you can get better. So whenever you can, check off some wins and you didn't play very well, turn the ball over, your turnover margin's bad, not playing complimentary football, as Vrabel always talks about. I think you feel very fortunate on getting a win. But the Titans were in full control of this game, and to me, most of the game. There was never a time where I felt like that they were out of contention, and that, I thought they could have, made it, I guess, where they were in control, where the game was over.
Right.
And I think that's what Vrabel was trying to do, going for 2, but that was later in the game. But I was never feeling, just because Carson Wentz, the way he was looking and playing, even though he was doing a great job, I just didn't feel like that it was enough that they could beat us. Not unless Hines got off.
Right.
I thought our DBs played
Look for
well
a second, though,
coverage.
like Hines might do that.
Ooh,
it's
boy,
like,
he went
oh,
up
boy, that
sideline,
touchdown run.
And I saw him burst and pass by it. I said, uh-oh. We in trouble. But, a lot of guys stepped up from Cruikshank, as you mentioned, but Ola Daly, did a great job pass rushing. Landry still continues to play really well, putting pressure on the quarterback. The D-line played well, and then naturally the O-line did just enough. Tannehill probably one of those throws back that he threw. He was trying to force it a little bit. The other one was off of Rodgers, who I thought Rodgers played solid. Out there, especially on punt return. I think he was averaging like 15, 16 yards a punt return. He was looking pretty impressive back there. It was a good team win, but it's one you're not satisfied with, and I think that's where Vrabel's coming from. Pretty much the whole game. That the turnovers, and man, they can't keep doing. That's 2 times in a row now, and giving up. They didn't give up any splash plays really on defense this time.
Yeah.
That was really good. But I'm actually starting to see the identity of both sides, and I'm talking about with the play calling.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the play calling on offense was well. They changed it up. They kind of start, play action passing on first down. Then they came back with Henry and hammering them, on first down, later in the drive. So they were mixing it up. I'm sure they haven't hit full tilt yet, but both of them seem like they're capable of doing a solid job when players play up to their ability.
Mm-hmm.
First game was out the window. Everybody wasn't playing very well, especially on the offense. If you play up your ability, I thought, hey, those guys look like they're proven coordinators that they could do a solid job all season. So we'll get to see against a better opponent, maybe. By the way, the Jets' next opponent, they have a pretty solid defense.
Yeah,
what it's worth. They're better than our defense, and I would say they're about around the 5 to 8 range. Pretty good defense. And it's early in the season, so they're not wore down from playing a lot of snaps. If the quarterback Wilson's not getting it done, but yeah, win's a win. Got to celebrate it, enjoy it. But the players didn't enjoy that win as much. They're gonna be in those meeting rooms today, talking about all the mistakes.
Mike Vrabel got asked about Julio Jones yesterday. This was the quote. What happened to Julio Jones down the stretch? The quote from Mike Vrabel was, this is what he said. I think as this thing played out, tried to manage where he's at and understand that what the type of game that we thought the end of the game was going to be. And those guys were going in there trying to dig safeties out. We'll keep looking at those guys. And there's a lot of guys that are going to need some rest this week. A lot of guys They played a hard physical game, and hopefully we can be ready to go when we head up to New York. That was the answer. So John Glennon, who's going to join us next, and we can ask him in depth about this, he said maybe he's saying it was to do with blocking why he didn't play. That's kind of what people were trying to get at, trying to understand the riddle of what he said. Mm-hmm. So we got to ask about it again today. Lucas, I know you got some audio. Mike Vrabel, this was just a few minutes ago today, talking about Julio Jones and why he didn't play or didn't play in the fourth quarter.
And then, as it relates to your question, about Julio, guys go through games, guys get tight. And, I felt like it was in the best interest of our football team and everybody involved that he be available in an emergency situation at that point in time. There hasn't been, other than one admitted, I would say, lapse in judgment in the first game, which everybody would agree on, myself, the team, Julio. There hasn't been one situation where I was disappointed. He's played physical. He came back, played great last week, played physical yesterday, and that's where we were.
You say tight, Mike.
Again, guys get tight throughout the game, so we're not physically tight. Yeah. So, listen, guys, this is going to be the least I talk about injuries. So that's what we do. This is not an issue with his performance. This isn't an issue with anything other than me making a decision and saying, hey man, let's see if we can get through this and survive and win this football game and see if it's a long season.
So that was sort of the answer from Mike Vrabel, but he was not out there in the fourth quarter. As you mentioned, and I saw this as well watching on TV, it wasn't like he was standing there with his helmet on. There were long stretches where his helmet was just kind of sitting over. They have places on the bench where your helmet will sit, and his helmet was on that stand.
Well, he did say that he thought it was in the best interest of the team that he held him out. So that's why he did it, because then he was held out, and he wasn't going back in until he was told to go in. And Julio, he's the type of guy, hey, that's what the coach told him. That's what he's going to do. He's not going to sit there and have a, debate about it. So, yeah, I just thought it was interesting. He said he got tight. You guys, you got to trust in your coach. He's trying to do everything to win a game. So I want to believe that's what he was thinking. I might have, as a coach, in my mind, I might have said, okay, I'm going to do that. And then when we start moving the ball, and then I knew we were going to throw. Even if it's not targeted him, I would have tried to use him as bait.
Right.
Put him out there, and then now he's not have to maybe runs a hitch. Mm-hmm. And they running a 7 route behind him and a go and a combination route that, they put all eyeballs on Julio and then they throw to somebody else. So I might have used him for that. But we don't know what the situation was, as I mentioned earlier, about, where was his conditioning as far as his hammies and his body getting tight, because they wear those trackers now underneath their pads at practice. And maybe there were some alarm bells throughout the week saying, we need to back him off. And then maybe he played more than they thought up to that point because A.J. Brown was down.
Right.
And so maybe he already exceeded that limit that they wanted to play him, trying to keep him on the shot clock. And he probably felt like he had the game in hand, too, at the same time. So he probably felt comfortable in that decision. So long as you get a win, I don't think it's a big deal. I know a lot of people are talking about it for whatever reason. I know they paid their money. Well, they got 3 quarters out of Julio. They just missed a quarter. And we won. So I think that's an even trade-off, because ultimately you're trying to win the game. And I don't think Vrabel, I think he's a competitor. He's trying to win every game. I don't think he's trying to do anything not to win a game. So, yeah.
John Glenn's going to join us next. Let's get his take on things. How about that? He's covered the Titans for years now. Certainly has been in these press conferences. He's been there. He's heard it in person. We'll get an idea what he's thinking about Julio and AJ and more. Titans did get the win, but always lots to talk about on Monday. We will do that next with John Glennon, now with Sports Illustrated. That's coming up next on Blaine and Mickey 104.5 The Zone.
J. Martin Ramon, you're part of the fam just for listening.
This is without a doubt the best show on radio. You guys have effectively basically brought us closer to you guys, but brought the listeners close to each other. It's beautiful, man.
J. Martin Ramon, tomorrow morning starting at 6 on 104.5 The Zone.
So it's time. Twitter. Second of all, what in the world's going on with Mike Vrabel and Julio Jones and load management and tightness and everything else?
Yeah, I think we got a little bit more of the mystery cleared up today with Mike Vrabel's presser. Yesterday I thought he really left a lot of room for kind of speculation as to why Julio Jones didn't play at all in the fourth quarter, because he talked about how, they wanted to have some receivers in there who could kind of root out the safeties, that type of thing. And that, if you were trying to infer, what he was meaning, you could certainly have taken the course and said, all right, Julio Jones isn't doing a good enough job blocking in the run game, and then they brought in different guys for that. But today he was very clear that, Julio Jones was not playing in the fourth quarter, not because of performance. He said the only thing he's had a problem performance-wise with Julio so far is the unsportsmanlike conduct call in the first game. So to me, that narrows it down a little bit more to, was it an old injury acting up for Julio and kind of that load management situation, or was it something new that happened in the game? And I lean towards, something new happening in the game. Mike Vrabel said today, guys get tight as the game goes on, and I think that certainly applied to Julio. There were some times there in the fourth when I looked on the sideline and I could see him walking a little bit gingerly, not a huge limp or anything like that, but you could tell something was up a little bit. I just don't, I don't buy the load management theory. Not when you're in a 1-point game in the fourth quarter and you're in the red zone and A.J. Brown is already out of the game. You don't look at Julio Jones and say, man, we're gonna give you a few more plays off. I think it was certainly more of an injury type situation.
Well, it's funny the Titans are 2-1. They put the Colts in an 0-3 hole yesterday. That's thought by everyone to be their biggest competition in the division. And this nirvana with AJ and Julio and passing touchdowns all over that hasn't happened. Like Nick Westbrook-Akina and Racey McMath was out there in the fourth quarter yesterday, John. They're doing it with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. It's no different than how they were doing it before, even with just less A.J. Brown this time.
Agreed, yeah. And I think this is a situation, where you have to give Ryan Tannehill, more credit than perhaps, a lot of people, I think a lot of people nationally, still have the impression of, hey, this is what Ryan Tannehill does. He turns around and hands the ball off to Derrick Henry. I think locally we've seen that that's not the case, but I think that was reiterated yesterday. As you said, A.J. Brown's out of the game. Julio Jones is out of the game. And if you notice, Chester Rogers didn't get any passes thrown to him after the interception that bounced off his shoulder pad. So I think he was a little bit in the doghouse too. So, yeah, you're down to, basically Racey McMath and Nick Westbrook-Akina as your wide receivers. And Ryan Tannehill still found a way to get it done, throws 3 touchdown passes. 2 interceptions, sure. Only one of them was partially his fault, I think. But yeah, the guys were stepping up offensively, and I think you got to give the Titans credit for that. At this point, we didn't expect to see Nick Westbrook with more TDs than Julio Jones, but that's the way it's rolled out so far. And as you say, Titans atop the division, so you can't argue with too much right now.
John Glennon, our guest at Glennon Sports on Twitter.
Ed Glennon, man, what role player played the best yesterday? There was a lot of different roles. You can call Long Jr. a role player because he's not a typical starter. But what guys all stood out?
I'll give you the one on the offense that we talked about, Nick Westbrook. Because he really turned yesterday from a role player into, basically a wide receiver 2 or, I guess at times even 1 out there. Wound up playing 53 snaps, career high. We know what he can do as a blocker, but yesterday, winds up with 4 catches, including the TD catch. And he also threw that pass interference flag, 30-yarder, to put the Titans in position for another touchdown. So I think he was he was great role player stepping up on the offense. And to me, on the other side, Ola Adeneye is just bringing it in terms of the pass rush these days. This is a guy, he had one sack in 32 games, I believe it is, for Pittsburgh over 3 seasons. And we know, at Pittsburgh, they always have, the guys like Bud Dupree and so on and so forth that, Ola, I think, was just buried there in terms of, needing to rush the passer, but clearly has some talent in that regard. And I think Mike Vrabel saw that against Seattle when he just had, 3 snaps and 2 of them were, pressure and sack. He said, give this guy a few more snaps, and Ola certainly came through again yesterday. And again, it's sort of like seeing Nick Westbrook with more TD catches than Julio Jones. Now we're seeing Ola with, leading the team in sacks with 2.5 after 3 games. Never would have thought that, but again, that's the where they are right now. And then overall, they're getting more pressure on the quarterback than they did a year ago. So I think he's a big part of that.
Yes, we're on with John Glennon with Glennon Sports and Sports Illustrated. And you're talking about the first 3 games and who's playing good on offense and defense. We're role players anyway. But, through the first 3 games, what have you seen from the OCs and the DCs, the good and the bad?
From the starters, you're saying?
And the defense coordinators.
Oh, from the OC and DC. Yeah, sure. Well, I think, I think we're certainly seeing the defense make some strides, and especially those 2 big priorities the Titans had during all off season, all of training camp, were third down and red zone, and especially third down. And you look at yesterday, Colts were 3 of 12 on third down. Big step in the right direction for the Titans. And then this isn't a loaded Colts offense. We know that. Carson Wentz was not at 100% certainly, but still huge improvement there. And in the red zone, I believe the Colts were 1 of 3 as well. So I think we've seen the defense take big strides from week 1. When we kind of threw up our hands and said same old Titans defense, well, it's made some good strides there. I think offensively, Todd Downing, I think the same could be said for him. I think certainly in that first game, especially, there were some calls that he would like to have back, and maybe in retrospect, maybe he would have liked to have stuck with the running game even more, although it's hard to do because the Titans got down so big in that first game. But we've seen that patience in the run game really pay off for Todd Downing and the offense the last couple of weeks. We've seen him increase play action the last couple of weeks. And again, it's easier to do that when the game is close. But to very good reward for the Titans. Play action has been great for them. So, I think that both coordinators probably got off on a little bit of shaky footing, but moving in the right direction here, certainly.
No doubt about it. One with John Glennon. I guess, I go back to my day. These defensive holding calls, whether it was with the Titans or against the Titans, man, I don't even understand them. What are your thoughts? Is that a rule that they're emphasizing?
On the holding, you mean?
Yes. Like on the pass.
Yeah, I don't think that's it's a point of emphasis necessarily, but yeah, there's certainly, we have seen some called. Yeah, I guess you're talking defensively, probably.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I guess the good news is there's a silver lining to a holding call as opposed to a PI. It's only the 5-yarder. Because usually it's before the pass, but. Man, you feel you got to feel for defensive backs these days because they can hardly touch a wide receiver out there. Anything is going to be called. And the lean, I think, by officials and by the league is to fans want to see offense. So I think they're going to try to open things up as much as possible for the offenses and for passing games. And man, just grabbing a little jersey or getting in the way a little bit too often, and boom, you're flagged for a penalty. It's tough tough being a DB these days, Blaine.
Man, no doubt, man. I'd be all over the social media getting thrown out of games from the penalties I get. Good Lord. We're on with John Glenn, Sports Illustrated, Glennon Sports.
Remember, JG, in the preseason, we kept saying, gosh, that's a lot of turnovers. That's another interception. Oh, there's another interception. Gosh, all these turnovers. Unfortunately, it's continued into the regular season. It has stayed a trend, and it's been kind of different people's fault, as you were laying out some of the Tannehill stuff from earlier. But what they've given away 7 and only taken away 1, that's something that they got to get nailed down soon.
Yeah, absolutely. That traditionally, teams that fare well in terms of the positive differential there are your playoff teams. Teams that do not fare well in that particular statistic tend to be below 500 and not make the playoffs. So it's rare. I know we're only 3 weeks into the season, but it's kind of rare to see a team like the Titans, which I believe is at -6 right now, and that's one of the 2 or 3 worst in the league, I think. Kind of surprising to see them, at 2-1, and especially yesterday when they finished at -3 in terms of the takeaway giveaway ratio, and I think that was the first time in quite some time that the Titans had won a game when they're -3 in terms of takeaways. So two issues certainly, and one is that they themselves are giving it up too much, and both of those yesterday, I think were, or I should say 2 of the 3 turnovers, probably could have been helped. I think, certainly the catch by Chester Rogers has to be made. That ball is on target. That should not be a pick for Ryan Tannehill. And then the second interception, kind of interesting too. When I saw it live, certainly looks like Tannehill. What are you doing? And Mike Vrabel said afterward, a pretty memorable line. He said, "We threw it into a pep rally," which there were a lot of people around the football. But if you kind of look at it on replay, it looks like 2 of his pass catchers kind of went the wrong way at the same time, and Tannehill said afterwards miscommunication. So it didn't look as bad on tape, I thought, as it did live. But maybe the just as big a problem is the Titans aren't taking the ball away defensively. Just that one turnover they have forced so far, Kevin Byard, and Mike Vrabel pointed out today, they are getting more pressure on the quarterbacks, and they're getting around the quarterback more. So maybe guys like Harold Landry and Ola and so forth can start reaching for that football when they're around the quarterback instead of just bringing him down or chasing him. Hey, make sure to slap at that ball while you're at it too, because you really got to find ways to win the turnover battle. I think in the long run, you can't sustain a lot of wins with a ratio like the Titans have right now.
John Glennon, our guest. It's been interesting. Taylor Lewan has been, John, you covered Blaine's teams and those Titans teams when those guys wouldn't even talk to the media. They'd fine each other if they said anything to any of us. And now you got a guy with a podcast, and he's active, and he talks a lot, Lewan, and he has a bad game, and he gets booed, and he talks about it after the game. And he really put his feelings out there Sunday again, kind of going back to getting booed in that first game. That's something that this guy's really focused on. I mean, he really talked about it.
Yeah, he really did, and you kind of knew. I mean, when Taylor Lewan talks, you don't often come away going, he didn't really say much of interest today. I mean, one way or another, Taylor Lewan is going to say something of interest out there, and yeah, you're exactly right. Usually, offensive linemen, for the most part, are pretty closed-mouth guys. I mean, you and I both know, like a guy like a Dave Stewart, back in the day, the Big Stu, the old right tackle for the Titans. If he said 10 words to the media in a month, that was a thumbs up from the media right there. Nice guy, but just rarely ever spoke. But Taylor Lewan is clearly, he's going through a lot. I think this is the first real significant injury that he's had to deal with, and I think he's battling physically with it, and I think he's battling mentally. A lot of people, I've certainly never had to come back from a torn ACL, but I'm sure it's a mental battle as well. You go out there and you're dealing with scar tissue, and you're dealing with things like Taylor Lewan did last week when he said he hyperextended the knee during the warm-ups, and that affects you mentally too. You're not as confident as you normally would be. So I think it was a step in the right direction, as he said yesterday, to kind of just get in there and have basically, an average game. I don't think he was great, but he certainly was nothing like the Taylor Lewan we saw in week one, where he was beaten so often. So maybe Taylor Lewan now is kind of rounding that corner, to where he'll be playing without thinking, if you will, without worrying, is this next step gonna twist my knee or anything like that. And certainly if he can get back to that Pro Bowl level, that's going to help that running game and Derrick Henry that much more.
John Glennon, our guest at Glennon Sports on Twitter, Sports Illustrated. That's where you can find his work on the Titans.
Well, JG, man, 3 of 12, I think, on third down for the defense. Man, hold on to some field goals in the red zone. Man, the defense is kind of – actually, I thought this was a defensive game. I don't know about you. I thought the defense actually carried the weight this game.
It was a very good performance from the defense. And again, maybe there's that small asterisk. We say, okay, Carson Wentz was, playing on rickety ankles and they were missing a lineman or two. But nonetheless, we've seen some teams play the Titans in recent years, even when they weren't at 100%, and they looked very good against the Titans. So I think, a strong performance. I think it was, 260 or 265 total yards that the Titans held the Colts to, which was the lowest of any Titans opponent in I think more than a decade. So certainly some strides there. The third down is the biggest, and I think, there had to be a rebuilding of confidence for this defense, especially in terms of third downs after they gave up, basically an NFL record last year. I think opponents were converting like 52% of third downs, which is crazy. And then they came out in the first game, and again, we're struggling on third downs again, and it was easy to think, oh boy, here they go again. But to their credit, they're getting more pressure on the passer. They're playing the receivers a little tighter. I think Christian Fulton is certainly standing out, as the cornerback that the Titans had hoped he would be when they picked him in the second round last year. 3 for 12 is a great number for him. Now that the slight downside, of course, is the Titans gave up 2 for 2 on fourth down conversions, which evens it out a little bit. But man, when you look at what we were looking at last year and compare it to yesterday, boy, big difference.
Yeah, what did you think about Vrabel and that 2-point conversion to go for it there? What were you thinking as a thought process? John Glenn is the head coach. Would you have gone for 2 right there?
I generally, I like a lot of the progressive analytics and so forth, and I kind of lean in that direction. But man, it's tough for me, and I know you get the 2 points there, you turn it into a 2-score game. I understand that. But to me, I guess maybe I'm too conservative thinking. In my mind, I say, if you just kick the extra point, you're up 8, and you're forcing, the opposing offense to do everything it can just to tie in that respect. You're putting the pressure on the opposing team in that respect to not only score a touchdown but convert the 2 points as well. So to me, I don't know. I like generally the kind of the progressive analytics and a lot that's involved with that, but in that respect, maybe I'm a little old school because I just would have lined it up, kicked it, and said, "Okay, you guys, we're going to force you to not only score."
Me too, JG, man, for sure. Well, one thing is positive here, man. It's just kind of amazing. You were talking about a little bit earlier with Ryan Tannehill. He is 20-9 as a starter, I think. Take us through your evaluation of Ryan Tania, because I don't think he gives the credit. I think they won the game last week. I know Henry had, the King did his deal, but I just think he gets still undervalued. What's your evaluation of him 20-9 when you hear that?
Yeah, I do think he is certainly underrated. I think going into this season, if you look back at the last 2 years, I think he had the third best quarterback rating over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Now, people are going to say, well, sure, you got Derrick Henry, so that's going to help. And in that respect, I think he's an excellent play-action guy, and that the great running game does help in that regard. But he's gone beyond that, and I think one of the stats that really supports how well Ryan Tannehill has played is that game-winning drive stat. We saw that in Seattle again. That was the 10th game-winning drive he had. I think in at that point he'd only started 28 regular season games. So 10 game-winning drives in that time gives you a pretty good idea of how well he is playing when the game is on the line. And, even yesterday, when he struggles a little bit, he throws that early interception. I think he's really kind of shown that ability to say, okay, that's not going to ruin my entire game. I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to forget that. And again, yesterday, he's playing without AJ, without Julio, really without Chester Rogers much out there in the second half. And he's throwing touchdown passes to Nick Westbrook, to Jeremy McNichols, to guys that we just don't normally see. And I think that, certainly shows well for Ryan Tannehill that it's not just a one or two star pass catchers that are making his grade either. So yeah, absolutely. I think he is a guy that is undervalued, certainly outside this market.
JG, great stuff, man. Always love catching up with you. We'll all be keeping an eye on Julio's load management this week, I'm sure, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir. At Glennon Sports, SI, SportsIllustrated.com. You can catch John's work there covering the Tennessee Titans. When we come back, people are on hold. They want to talk Titans. Rick, Daniel, I know you've been holding. We'll come straight to you on the other side. It's Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
The Titans made a huge statement in the AFC South against the Colts.
The Colts gave the Titans all they had, but the Titans had more. Your final score, Tennessee 25, Indianapolis 16, as the Titans get it done again.
Talk about it all day on Reaction Monday on your home for Titans football, 104.5 The Zone.
Guys, thanks for taking the call. Blaine, this question is specifically for you because it has to do with a coach that I believe you played for with the Oilers and the Titans. And this coach continued to survive head coach after head coach after head coach until Vrabel arrived. And that's Steve Watterson.
Oh, the
and
strength coach.
I do not remember in the years of Watterson that he had this many problems with getting ball players to be on the field. Now, I heard that it was a difference of opinions between Vrabel and Watterson. And Watterson decided to retire. But I guess what I want to know from you, Blaine, am I full of crap?
Well,
thank you for the call.
Well, maybe I
let me
missed
just
something.
put it out there like this.
No, well, maybe I misunderstood, but here's my position. Watterson was the strength coach. He was not the actual trainer. The trainers are the one deciding on the rehab and if the guys are on the football field or not. Now, Watterson is taking them through some kind of running drills that they have asked him, to check out and maybe wanted his opinion a little bit, but it was really the trainers. One thing you could say is we didn't have a lot of strains and pulls, and sometimes it's kind of genetic or wear and tear. Some guys just, their bodies, they're not hydrating correctly or doing something to make them dehydrated and they don't really know it. So those things, I think, Watterson did a really good job as well as the training staff there to keep us informed and hydrated. But we had a lot of disciplined players and they cared. I mean, I don't know any of these young guys and what their mindset is. And I would assume that some of them are a lot more focused than others. But I have no idea.
Squeeze one more call in. Daniel and the Burrow will wrap things up for us today. Hey, Daniel, appreciate your patience, man.
Yeah, but Julio Jones, I think it's a twofold thing. I think he probably held him out to try to save him for the back stretch of the season just simply because that's going to be the toughest part, and it always is. Plus, get these young guys more experienced so when you get them to that back stretch of the season, they've had the experience. They know what's expected of them, and you get better production out of the whole team that way. I think Vrabel's looking at the end of the season as opposed to right now.
Daniel, I appreciate the phone call, man. Thank you. Well thought out there with that. Well, the young guys are definitely getting experience.
Yeah.
I mean, Chester Rogers and Nick Westbrook-Akina. Here's the thing. It's a 17-game season. You're going to have to count on everybody. And there's dudes that aren't on the team right now that are going to get – they're free agent. They're somewhere else. They go get cut. They're on somebody's practice squad. Even some of those dudes over a 17-game season are going to wind up here and wind up helping out at some point. It's a long season.
Yeah. And it's funny because, everybody wants to see the big name guys. Lucas always wants to see Julio and A.J. Brown do really well. But at the end of the day, you want to win. And I'm sure Vrabel wants to win too. But everybody's going to contribute. And just because you're the backup doesn't mean that you're not capable of having a nice little run and do really well while you're out there. There's a reason why you're the backup, and there's a couple things that, you have potential, upside. Coaches see something, you bring value, and they see that they can develop you into something that maybe you don't even know yet. So sometimes it comes sooner than later with some of them, depending on how much time they're going to put in to be the best individual they can be that year. And you can see some of them are prepared to ready to rock and roll, whatever role that that they have to play, whether they're a special teamer, Westbrook-Akina, to all of a sudden now he basically was really the number one receiver out there. Just think about that for a minute. Westbrook-Akina was wide receiver 1 in my mind out there at the end. I mean, maybe you count the running backs or something, but I mean, Rodgers was really not out there. He didn't go back to him. Julio and A.J. Brown are out, so are you gonna throw to McMath? I mean, I just don't see it. He was the guy.
Yeah. Time for us to get to the guys and gal on 3HL.